Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Hockey World Order. Today, we have our favorite guest, our most popular guest, of course, and one who just put out a new book. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Behn Wilson. Ben, glad to have you back, man.
Hey, it's great to be here. We got a show and let's have some fun.
Ben, let's talk about, right off the bat, let's talk about what I'm going to put up here is a link to your new book called Gloves Off. That's the Amazon link. Go buy that book right away, and let's get Ben some money so he can write another book. Tell us a little bit about what went into writing a book.
Well, it was funny. I've been out of hockey and appearances and all that for 35 years straight. And the long story is my daughter was following it, and Scoop Malinowski. I was asking her if I'd do an interview, and finally it came down to Dad, he's got 5 questions. You can answer five. And I said, I'll be a big boy. I'll answer five. And then Scoop was telling me what some of the guys were doing. And it brought back this whole flood of memories. And Scoop wrote a book about me. And then that brought back more flood of memories. And I started talking to some of the old guys. And then, all these stories that are going to be lost to time because I didn't really tell my children about it. Um, my wife doesn't know anything about it, and then I got this urge. I played with against some tremendous players, and everyone remembers Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and over time, some of the other players seemed to fade, but they were fabulous, and they were absolutely fabulous. So I wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to really great players and people that really influenced me, great bonds I made. And so I just started writing notes down and writing notes down, and um, slowly try to make it a book. What I didn't want to do is start off. Oh boy, I was a young child. My mother thought I was special, and all that. This book is a shout out to my experiences with some great players. Um, uh, it is a behind the scenes look at some of the crazy, silly, stupid things that happen from my perspective, only my perspective. And in the book, I don't go, oh, I won this fight. I beat him. I don't do any of that stuff because I believe very, very, very strongly that if you drop your gloves, you win the fight.
Yeah.
If you drop your gloves, you win the fight because it's dangerous, it's scary, it's lonely out there, and you're standing up and making a statement for your team. So I don't go into that, and I think a lot of all these guys, that's what they did, including me, and I like to get credit for that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's an art that, unfortunately, for a long period of time in hockey and sports itself, has gone away. The self pride in your team, the willingness to defend your teammates. I'm glad to see the NHL. Little tiny bit of that is coming back. A little bit different era, different style, but some of that is coming back. Um, Ben, I guess one of the quick, questions we'll get out of the way first is: did you watch any of the Olympics? Did you watch any of the Olympic hockey? Did you like how it came
Oh,
down?
um, absolutely. I watched all that I could, and I'll tell you what, they were great, intense games. So this is absolutely playoff intensity. I give a lot of credit to all the players on all the teams. This isn't the regular season. This is in playoffs, and this takes a lot out of them. But they were there, and the games were hard checking, and it was tremendously exciting, tremendously, and it just shows you now on the parity with a lot of countries. I mean, they're close games.
Do you feel like I feel like I watched the World Cup of Hockey years ago. I watched the Four Nations. I watched the Olympics. I just feel the NHL. There's too many teams right now with 32 teams and possible expansion to 36. you're looking at, every team having to have 4 NHL ready goalies at any time. You're looking at well over 140 different goaltenders that have to be ready. Then you're talking about 6 defensemen. You really need 10, so that's 360 defensemen. I just think that when the NHL was smaller and the talent base was the cream of the crop. Now you got a lot of fringe NHL players, and I don't want to take anything away from anybody. They're still professional hockey players, and they're living their dream. But do you think the game has just expanded too much with the NHL?
Um, I think that's a really tough question. Your argument is what you just said is, you know, pretty pervasive, pretty, it's almost indisputable. But I think the flip side of that is there's more money in the game. More guys are treating it very, very seriously, and the number of good players has increased. And I think that when you go through a period, there are usually 6 teams in the league, and but more and more players are playing. It's more international, and then so what's the right of expansion amount? I have no idea, and I'm not in a position to judge how strong all these players are all because I've been out of the game way, way too long. Um, but the game's also different. The game's also different. It's run and gun, and you sweep, and you just keep circling around, and you go for the next explosive play. And a lot of the game isn't the hard hitting defensive game. And personally, when you're up 4-1, 5-1, often the team loses the game. And you say, how does that happen? How do people not shut down the defense? Play it safe and all that. So I'm at a loss to how that game works, but I think you can chalk a lot of that up to is I've been out of the game too long and I've lost it.
It's really funny is that if you go back and if people are too young and they look up your stats and they got an honor to have watched you played like I did, you'd fit right in today. People don't realize that Behn Wilson came up as a pure offensive threat who played the power play, who killed penalties, took a regular shift. There was no, I hate to use the word. I'm going to say enforcer because I hate the word goon. I think the word goon is insulting. But there was not an enforcer only Behn Wilson. There was a pure hockey player in Behn Wilson, and you would have fit today's game perfectly. You'd be a $10 million player, believe it or not. You'd be, right up there. And it's funny because
Well,
you hear a lot of ex-players that get bitter about today's contracts, and I made 200,000 was the most I ever made. That if I put those goals up today, I'd be making 10 million. But you'd fit right in the game today, and you're one of the few players from the '70s and '80s that would have done that, in my opinion.
yeah, the game changes, and I think of basically I play, 78 to 88. So it's called the '80s. The first 5 years were extremely violent, and there were great players that couldn't play. They just couldn't take the beatings, and so they're out of the league. And that job was filled by tough guys. And then as they started taking a lot of the violence out by actually calling penalties, that type of player could now play, and some of the tough guys that really couldn't skate very well are out of the game. And I know I made one All-Star game, and it was before the game. I was trying to figure out. I always put Vaseline on my face before every period, and I said, this may be the one time in my career I don't have to do it. And but just before the game, I went and did it anyway. It was just too ingrained in me. But it's a different game when the violence isn't there, and it's very, very noticeable. It was actually a lot of fun to play when you don't have to worry about someone taking your head off from behind or something like that. So it is a different game, and um, taking that out of the game would, in a lot of ways, is a huge relief. Because before a game, I just go down the stat sheets of the other team and say, oh. And they brought up a new guy. His name is, 42 letters long, no vowels. He's played one game and he has 120 minutes and penalties. I wonder what he's going to do tonight. It's nice to get that out of the game, and the game got faster. And then I just saw Mark Howe at the Flyers flight nights, and thinking of Mark Howe. I mean, he would own the league right now. He was the best skater I've ever seen, and Mark could play and with all the violence, and play exceptionally well. But without that, he'd be completely untethered. He could just wind up and go, and he had the legs for it. So, different game. I'd like to think I could play now, but everyone gets voting, and you don't want to get presumptuous to that. But I'd like to think I can play.
I think you could play right now. That's that old Pete Rose joke. Pete Rose was on MLB Network, and there was a female reporter, and she says, "Pete, today's game is so much different. What do you think you would hit in the league today?" And Pete goes, "About 180." And she goes, "Oh, the pitching has improved that much. You only think you would hit 180 in the MLB today?" He goes, "No, stupid. I'm 78 years old. I'd only hit 180 because I couldn't run to first base anymore." So,
That is absolutely hysterical.
yeah.
What a great! I hopefully I can steal that line, translate it, and pretend I made that up. That's very
You have
funny.
my
That's very
permission.
great.
And speaking of guys with 42 letters in their name, Chris Kostopoulos is a partner of mine on another show, and he said to say hello to you and tell you he'd love to get together and have a conversation someday.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Chris and we go way back.
He
I
said
think
you guys were
we.
little kids. He said you guys first met playing, very young age.
Yeah, the in growing up and playing in Toronto, which is a hockey hub and a lot of players. There's very few of my year that turned pro, and I want to say less than five, and he was one of them. So yeah, I know Chris well, and yeah, say hi to him, and yeah, I got to get together with him. And this is one of the things to write the book. I've been reaching out to guys, and guys have been reaching out to me, and it's fun to connect and look back um, it's nice to hear the stories of things that happen, but it's also nice to hear it from their perspective, and everyone sees has a different. A little different take on the things that happen based on where they are and how much they knew and things like that. And some of the stories get completely changed
Yeah,
just when you get more information. So it's been great. It's been great.
yeah. It's really funny. Going through the notes on the book, you got a pilot's license. What was that like?
It was great. What happened was my kids were grown, and out of the house, and through a friend of a friend, he's flying from Florida to the Bahamas. And I went to a neighbor of mine who flies for American, and he was in the Air Force. And I said, can an amateur, like part-time pilot, ever be safe? And he said, yeah. So, but 2 days later, I started taking lessons. Now, looking back, he didn't know anything about a private amateur pilot, and that was great. So I started going, and it became a bigger and bigger part of my wife's and my life. And we started traveling farther and farther. But yeah, it's been a huge part of our life, and it's fun. We've flown trips to Europe, Africa, Indian Ocean. We've flown around the world, and we've had a great time and met a lot of great people.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you, it's for the first time in my life. About 6 months ago, I was on a private plane and I got to sit in the co-pilot's chair for a couple minutes, and it was overwhelming. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, it's not like driving a car. Everybody's kind of like, oh, if you could drive a car, it takes a lot of skill. I got
Well,
one of the questions that Scoop told me I had to ask was he wants to have you
Oh
talk
no.
about the Antarctica trip that you took.
We yeah, just for something to do. My wife and I and some friends that we flew around the world with. We went to Antarctica National Geographic expedition, and it was a great experience. Um, I went down there to see the polar bears, and I get all the way down there, and they tell me that polar bears are only in the Arctic. Now that's a joke, so laugh a little bit, but it was great. It was a world you don't get to see, and they take you out on zodiacs, and the whole time I'm thinking, if something happens to the zodiac, you go in this water, you know, life's not good,
Right.
and then everyone down there, they do the polar plunge, where they tie a life belt around you in a rope and you jump in the water, and it gets so exciting and there's a lot of inertia and everyone's doing it, but not me because I hate the cold water. I hate the cold water, and I also don't intentionally run my head into a brick wall. So, but it was great to see. It
Did,
was it
did you
was
get to see anything that nobody else in the world got to see? Some conspiracy theory stuff. Is there a jungle up there? Do we have is there five-legged people up there walking around with Behn Wilson jerseys on?
Yeah, well, they had a lot of. They're all asking me about five-legged people are asking me about my book, and when it comes out. And no, what was the parts I remember seeing? The colonies of penguins, and you hear about the different types of penguins and all that. But the other thing is you go to, I think, St. George's Island, and then finally there's a place where you actually go on Antarctica mainland, and you sit there and say, "Hey, I'm in the Antarctic mainland," and that was something. And then they have a post office down there, and I think there's 6 months a year that they don't have any mail because you can't get in or out. And we met a couple people. The guy was a researcher, and over their winter, they stay there. So you say goodbye to the ships, and 6 months later they came, and he's done it several times. So that's got to be a little bit of something. But it was a lot of fun. They make it fun and upbeat, and it was a great experience.
That's got to be a pretty incredible place. Not many people in the world get to visit that. Ben, with the book coming out, there's so many stories. I got to say, you actually helped really make my podcast jump off the air. I was one of the first people who got you. Scoop hooked me up with you, and I can't tell you the amount of former players who have reached out to me, telling me that they watched the interview and how great it was,
Oh,
and you
really?
were their idol growing up, and it was really cool. And some of the stuff that you talked about early on the interview was in the book, but let's rehash it. And I want to ask a little more detailed questions about it. Talk about playing basketball when you got traded to Chicago and playing against Michael Jordan. How incredible is that?
Well, I didn't want to make him look bad. That you
I
got to
figured.
start with
I
that,
figured
right?
that.
So, no, I had to take it was we were off, coming off a little bit of an injury because we're not traveling with the team. It's before their practice, and Canadian white boys, when we shoot, we count a half point if we hit the rim, and when I was in eighth grade jumping, I could touch the rim, just touch it. And but playing pro, um, I couldn't touch the rim. It's you use different muscles, and don't want to hurt myself. So we're out there playing, and uh, no one wants to piss anyone off. That was the starting thing, and everyone's it's not an organized game. It's a little bit of one on one, and they take the ball from you before you know they're taking the ball from you. And if they pass the ball harder than you're ready for it, and not when you're ready for it, and always seems to hit me in the nose, and then your eyes water up, and all that. But there's nothing that you could do against them. And not that I'm a basketball player, but the only thing I could do eventually is try to back them down and just keep ramming them as hard as I can. And that meant nothing to them either because they get what you're doing. And then if they want, they can jump around you and take the ball. They can stand into you, and you can't ram into them and go up because they've seen it before. And they're not just blocking the shot; their hands are above the ball, and they could actually push the ball back down into your head. So it was a lot of fun, and my game consists on backing them in, moving picks, and when they try to drive around me, getting my arms out and interfering with them. And they didn't care. There's, everyone's used to playing, street ball, hockey, or basketball. They're used to all this cheating, and they just thought it was funny. And so, as we got a little bit more familiar with each other, and they see what you're going to do, and you realize, you don't piss them off, you don't want to hurt anyone, and then everyone got the idea that this is just we've all played this game. We've all in hockey, you play pickup and everyone's cheating like crazy and holding and grabbing and whatever, and they're used to that. And they just can't. It's hard for them to understand how really bad our basketball skills were, but the cheating part and the moving picks we were pretty good at. So we had a lot. It was a lot of fun. And Jordan came out. I think once or twice. Scottie Pippen came out, and they were amazing. Um, they could outplay the center at centers. They could do. My best line ever was Jordan got the ball somewhere and put it in, and I told him, I said, "Listen, you just stay under the hoop and rebound. I'll do the shooting from now on." And he's just laughing. He's just laughing. He's just laughing because we can't shoot from outside because we haven't shot a basketball in 20 years. We can't shoot from the outside, and you see you can't go to the hoop because there is no chance that you can go up and drive and do any sort of layup because it's child's play for them. They see it coming a mile away, and they only jump like 8 feet higher than you. And but we had fun. We had fun,
What was
and
Chicago
didn't.
Stadium like in those days with the Bulls winning? Did you get to experience any games live? Did you ever have a night off where you went to a Bulls game and got to see the crowd?
Yeah, it was tough because usually when we played, they're traveling when and vice versa. So I got to some of the games, and when I first got there, I think it was Michael's first year, maybe his second year, and he had a broken foot. He had a crack in his foot, and there's articles, and they're not sure when he can come back and play. And there was articles saying, "Does Jordan even want to play?" So, that's always everyone's writing an article, everyone's got something to say, but and I guess yesterday's news gets forgotten. But whoever wrote that all those years ago in his first year, does he even want to play? I think they might have wanted to reassess that question. And but that was great, and that stadium was crazy for basketball. And it was crazy for hockey also. It's the old style inner city stadium, and the fans were real. They were almost part of the game. It was fabulous when I played for Chicago, and it was horrible playing against Chicago.
Yeah, my biggest regret is one of the arenas I never got a chance to see. It's definitely would have been a life dream to just been able to step into that atmosphere. Um,
The,
I was just going to say, you mentioned a little while ago about the Flyers fight night and stuff like that, and I've heard that you've got to sit down with an ex-teammate, Paul Holmgren. What was it like talking to Paul after all of those years, and how did that come about?
um, yeah, Paul was there. First of all, off the ice, Paul is relatively mild mannered. He's gracious, and he's a nice guy. And if anything, he's joking, and you juxtaposition with that on the ice, he was he was ruthless. And but I know the two Pauls, right? I know the two Pauls, and it was great to catch up with them. One of the two highlights I always have about Paul, and I was telling you about this, and we're in Stanley Cup Finals, but he did it other times. Paul specialized in breaking towards the net and hoping that someone would pass on the puck right beside the net and tip it in. But if the puck wasn't coming, Paul kept going, and it ended up cross-checking Billy Smith in the head. And
I don't find anything wrong with
so,
that for some reason as a Ranger fan. I'm perfectly fine with Billy Smith getting cross-checked in the head.
so Paul would do it, but it's not like, oh, and he tried to make it look like an accident, right? And you just sit there and say, how many accidents in a row it can this happen? Because it's becoming bad luck, Paul. And so he runs over Billy Smith, and then someone jumps on him, but he's the guy that got the shot in of Billy Smith, which was incredible. And he they did that. But my other one was, and I told him this, that Paul started off one year and he tore his rotator cuff, and he didn't want to be out. He was going to have the surgery at the end of the season. So it means he's going to play a whole season with one arm in a lot of pain. And that's a hell of a price to pay, hell of a commitment. But during that, we're in the Rangers, and it doesn't stop him from being ferocious. And he ran over Beck a few times, and finally, he and Beck are going to get into a fight. And I'm looking at this and saying, Paul's got one arm. Paul's got one arm, and you're going to fight back. This can't be good. So that's when they cut Paul off, and I got in the fight with Beck. But Paul didn't care.
That fight was
Paul
at
didn't care.
MSG. That fight was at MSG at the in between the face-off circles, facing the goalie. I'll never forget that. They squared off and you charged in. I know that fight like the back of my hand. So now it makes sense why you came in. Okay, that's great to have that cleared up
Yeah.
after all these years.
No, and you sit there and say, like, so I told Paul, I said, Paul, I mean, Beck's defense at one end, I'm at the other. We'll never pass one cross, and that's fine with me. Is if in case no one noticed, Paul Beck was a pretty big, pretty tough guy, and but Paul didn't care. Paul's going to fight him one handed, and it didn't matter what happened. Paul was he was absolutely as tough as they come on the ice. I don't think he was a top fighter, but there's a lot of ways. This is all about intimidation. Paul was as tough as they come. There was no one tougher, and he wasn't backing down, and he was going. So he's going to fight back with one arm. That's why I got in the fight. So I reminded him. I said, "Thanks, Paul. Thanks. Maybe you could have just sort of like let that one go, and I could have avoided one fight, you know, or or maybe you should have squared off with Ron Duguay or whatever, and then let me
They
jump
actually
in."
did fight a couple times, Duguay and Holmgren. Hey, Ben, while you're talking about crazy tough teammates, let's ask a couple questions. Like, who's the one guy that maybe you played with or against that you just thought was nuts? Like, was there anybody you just looked at a corner of your eye and went, "Oh my God," like not him again, or anything like that?
There's a long list. There is a long list of tough guys. Paul is right at the top of my list. Um, all the guys that fought, the tough guys, they were tough. I mean, the bottom line is you're always, half a second from someone putting their fist or their stick through your head. And they were all tough. And I said in my book, the toughest that I dealt with was Willie Platt. I fought Terry O'Reilly 3 times, almost everybody else just once, and I fought Willie 8 times. And um, what I how it went, I thought I did enough that he wasn't coming back, and that wasn't looking back. That wasn't happening, I said in my book, well, and I say this, and you got to think I'm the smartest guy in the universe, but I was looking at the stat sheet. I'm 19. Atlanta's coming to. I'm looking at the stat sheet, and I see Willie Platt scored almost 40 goals the year before. and I think he was Rookie of the Year. And I see him skating in warm up, and he's got blonde hair, nicely cut. I said, "Well, this is a goal scoring Swede." And so he comes around from the back of our net early in the game, and I figured, great. So I speared him really hard, and I figured that Swede won't get within 50 feet of the net when I'm on the ice. I've solved my problem. He's not scoring where I'm on the ice. Um, so I speared him hard, and in about 3 seconds, I realized I was fighting for my life. And he was strong. He knew how to fight. He was vicious. He had rage. He had it all. And now I realized why he scored all those goals, because no one wanted to get near him. No one. He was a terror. He was a terror physically with a stick. He was as rotten and as nasty and as mean. And so why 8 times? Because I think the next time I was skating down the ice and he went to whack me with my stick, he came up like that and cut me with a stick for some stitches. I'm on the ground, and now we'll get back up and we're in a fight. I don't know what happened next, but one time he cross-checked me hard in the back of the neck, and I go flying, and I'm in a fight. And of course, I reciprocated and cross-checked him in the back of the head, and all that sort of stuff. But for me, Willie, um, and when I played against Willie with the Flyers and the Blackhawks, I was, I think, always assigned when he goes on the ice, you go on the ice. So it doesn't matter what shift you just had, you get to go it again. And it doesn't matter how tired you are, you get to go it again. But I can see it because he was brutal. He was brutal with guys, and sometimes I don't know if he gets enough notoriety or credit for how tough he was. But he wrecked defenses.
I think it's
He was
funny
he
because you
was he
thought you
was
had
tough.
told the story that you thought he was a blonde-haired Swede on the first interview, and I always laugh because
Oh,
he,
I did.
he actually was a pissed-off Paraguayan. I think I told you he's from Paraguay, South America, and so is my dad. So he
Yeah.
was always my
Oh,
dad's
okay.
favorite player because he could never figure out how to somebody. My dad used to laugh and call it the jungle. He used to say, "I can't figure out how somebody came from the jungle to play ice hockey. We don't like ice," he would say. So it was just funny. Willie was really tough guy. Who else did you cross paths with? And one of the questions I always wanted to ask you, and I didn't do in the first two interviews, was you played with the Flyers. You had such a tough team. Was there anybody stupid enough off the ice that ever tried to test the hockey players at a bar or anything like that? You always hear these stories of pro wrestlers getting challenged. What about hockey players? You guys ever have to put somebody in their place in a bar?
Well, once you get off the ice, there's criminal and service and civil charges. And my take was, even coming off the ice at a hockey rink, if a fan leans down and takes a swipe at you, that's too bad. You swing back, and you're going to get charged, and they're going to file a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. So it's only one way, and you have to be clear that unless you want to be broke, you don't fight off the ice. And there's times, um, there's a bunch of times when people would then, want to, they would try to provoke you or provoke other guys or whatever, and look for a fight. And when that happened, I got up and left. I got up and left the bar, and made sure they weren't following me outside. But and I got and left. And every now and then there's a bunch of guys, and one of the teammates would come over. These guys all want to fight. Ben, let's get over here. I said, guys, I'm not fighting for free. Just understand that I don't know why they're doing it. Um, and don't know why this is a good idea for them, but I'm not part of that at all. So I've left the bars or after games dozens of times over my career. I'm not going to get involved in that. Does it piss you off? Hell yeah, it pisses you off. Why? I'm there with my friends, now I have to leave, and but it's a lose lose, and not part of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great way to think. The lawsuits do. Everybody was sue happy, and they are nowadays too. So it's a little crazy. And you retired after getting traded from Chicago to Vancouver, and you were still a relatively young man, still one of the best heavyweights in the league, still a very steady defenseman. Do you regret leaving the game a little early, or was it just a decision you were done and it was made up?
Um, Great question. Physically, I thought I could play a lot more years, um, and it's something that it's all you've ever done your whole life is play hockey, and it's a little scary to leave for a lot of reasons financially, but it's scary to leave because this is the world that you know. This is the world of how the sun rises and sets. Um, and um, but at the time, I had young girls, and my oldest daughter was starting kindergarten, and my big judgment back then was um, I wanted her to be in her own home, and um, and have that stability, and going to try and do everything perfectly to raise my children. And it seemed very, very important. And the juxtaposition of that is um, you don't know if you're going to get traded once during the year, twice during the year. And then my wife is, what city is she? Is she trying to catch up? Is she going home? I was hating traveling, and then the kids are young and you come back 3 days later and they're saying something and now you don't understand what they're saying. And I have to ask my wife what they're saying, and it hurt my feelings. I never like that. And then you're home for 2 days and you got it again, and oh, you're gone. And um, so I didn't see the day for me to retire. And physically, and when I couldn't play on a team, um, it's not like I was trying to get one more year in. Um, uh, and what happened is um, Chicago offered me another contract, and I didn't sign. I finished out my contract. I didn't sign it, so they didn't. I didn't show up for training camp, and they didn't protect me in Vancouver. I think picked me up off of waivers um, to see if I'd play. My answer was I had made my decision, and right or wrong. But now that you bring it up, it was scary. It was terrifying. Who knows if anyone makes the right decision about anything, right? Your life is like you're driving down a highway covered in ice, and if you're swerving to the left, you better get steering to the right, and if you're swerving to the right, you better get steering to the left, and um, you make a lot of decisions, and you just do your best. And but I remember that Labor Day when training camp um, had just started, and I'm at the pool club with my kids having an end of the year barbecue or whatever, and I felt weird, I felt creepy, I felt guilty, I felt everything, and and the second guessing yourself was an understatement. And I had already made up my decision. I'm moving on, and I felt, you know, if you get to do everything again twice or three times, you do everything different. But at the time, I did that, and I don't think you can look back. If I look back, I would let maybe I could let Paul fight Barry Beck. You know, just doesn't work that way. I
Well,
would have
I
made.
think you made a decision for family. I don't think that's anything anybody can question. I mean, I think that just listening to that story was super impressive how you put your family above everything, and your daughters, and wanting to be there. I think there's no questioning that decision. And I know your closeness to your family because every single time we've ever talked about on one of these interviews, you bring up your daughters and your wife, and you have this certain look in your face when you talk about them, and it's
Yeah,
amazing, and it's good to see that some people still value family, and obviously you do, and it's the right decision then, you know.
yeah. I was blessed. My parents were absolutely wonderful, and they did everything for me and my siblings. And They really laid down the blueprint of, of what you should do, or instilled values, however you describe it. But I was very committed to that, and I was terrified of missing the years with my kids. And you know, a lot of times when you're around them, you just like to throw them out the window and all that stuff. But you don't want to miss the kids. And now we have grandkids, and um, um, grandkids know, little kids know a lot, and they know who's spending time with them, and they know who's sharing experiences with them,
Do we have a
and
future
you can't
Wilson
you can't
coming to
fool.
the NHL? Do we have any potential there?
I have two grandchildren. Shout out Owen and Hudson Kolb, and they live in Nashville, and they're very, very avid hockey players. So you never know. But the great thing about being a grandparent, not the parent, is I don't have to. Um, I'm there to help if asked, and if not, I'm there to support. And my big joke is, does anybody want some unsolicited advice? And they're raising their children as they see fit, and I just have to smile and support it and encourage. And it's it's great. I don't have to. I guess my point is I'm not involved in the decision making, and pushing them or not pushing them, or what sport or anything like that. My two grandchildren that live right near me, one plays baseball and one plays soccer, and I support the baseball and soccer, and it's great.
Well, if you ever jump
And
on that
speaking of my
private
great
plane and come to
daughters,
Nashville, let me know because that's where I live, and I'll have to take you out to dinner.
yeah, that would be great. Look at this, my shirt. What my daughters made this. So I showed up at the Flyers um, thing wearing this, and as a shameless promotion for my book. And of the people there, I said, I just hope someone buys one book.
Well,
And two people thought they would buy the book, and I said,
I'm going to talk to you
I
off
don't
the air
need that.
about something.
I only need one. I only need one.
I got to talk to you off the air about something when the show's over. I have an idea, and I think you're going to like it. I've done this with other people with their books. Ben, I got a lot of people, and I hate to bring up fighting because this is more about your book, and we talked for 2 hours about scrapping and stuff last time, but I left something out, and I got reprimanded by former NHL players, current NHL players, fans. I even had a lady call me and tell me I screwed the interview up. Everybody's asking about the Kurt Frazier fight. I don't know why it's such a big deal, but it's a whole bunch of people wanted me to ask you about the fight with Kurt Frazier, your opinion about the fight, what happened with the fight. Do you remember the fight?
Ooh, I remember the fight. First of all, afterwards, I played with Kurt in Chicago, and we were great friends. And Kurt's an awesome guy. He's an awesome guy, and I love him to death. And so, what was happening? When I first turned pro, and my fights are going well, and finally I said, before every game, who's this guy? Who? Because someone's played or with or against everybody, right? Who's this guy? And finally, guys say, "Oh, don't worry about him. Oh, don't worry about him." And my answer was, I'm going to actually worry about him. I'm going to worry. Let me tell you. Is he righty? Is he lefty? Is he going to jump me from behind? Is he whack me with a stick? What is so? Oh, don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. And so we're going into Vancouver, and Mel Bridgman comes out to me and basically says, "Kurt Fraser, you should worry about him." And then I thought, I like the times when everyone says, "Don't worry about him. Don't worry about him." No, you're scaring me, Mel. And so I did something stupid. Speared Sundin, his center, after the whistle. Not too hard, but enough to be an ass. And Kurt saw it, and Kurt drew the line. He's not taking that shit. We drop the gloves when we fight. And um, Kurt was not demonstrative of the way he played, but he was exceptionally strong, exceptionally strong, and he was a great fighter. And we had an absolutely brutal fight. And it's one of those fights where you can you can do your best and not go well. You can, oh, I had an off day, is okay. I fought my very best, and I think he fought his very best, and neither of us got hurt because when you're in it's just not you hit me, I hit you, you hit me, and I hit you, and let's see who's standing. You got to defend yourself, and I got a good grip on his arms and his punches. They're missing me by it felt like an eighth of an inch, and might have it hit me lightly, but not enough to hurt. I'm getting my swings in, and he's got me. And one slip up, and I felt Kurt would actually put his fist not only through my skull, it'd come out the back end. He'd be using his legs, or someone have to hold my head down to pull his fist out of my skull. He was that powerful, and so it was a fight. So Kurt's Kurt's one of the top fighters. There's no question, and he didn't look for it. He didn't just whatever. And my advice to anyone is just leave the guy alone, because he was powerful. So the end of the story was, we're playing in Chicago. He's over at my house, and someone gave me back then a VHS of some of my fights. And looking down the list, I said, "Our fight's there. Let's go watch it." And so we watched it together, and you it's the flashback was by the time we finished watching it, both of us were half sick, and we agreed, let's never watch that one again. But it's one of those things. It's not like neither of us got hurt, but we both knew that we were millimeters from getting destroyed. He's that powerful. He was that powerful. No mistake.
It's amazing to hear because he was such a good hockey player, and yeah, nobody messed with him either. He created a lot of ice for himself, so it's good to hear from a guy like you just how tough he actually was. Ben, I got a couple quick questions, and we're gonna get you out of here quickly. One of the things that disturbs me and bothers me is the fighting technique of today's guys. I just got a quick question. I think you've summed this up a million times for me, and I think you're an expert at it. So I'm going to take your opinion as gospel. A lot of guys nowadays, I was always taught I only played at a very low level. Whatever. I'm nowhere near Behn Wilson. That's why I'm asking your opinion. A lot of guys today are grabbing here in the NHL, and they're trying to just lock out a guy and not allow. Where back in the day, we were always taught to tie up the stronger arm of your opponent and not allow, like you just said, the reach. What is the proper technique for a guy who is scrapping in today's NHL? Is it to tie up the opponent's arm, or is it to grab and lock out?
Well, you hit the $1 million question. When I was at Fight Nights, they had Brashear there, the fighter from Philly, and he's a lefty, and he grabs a guy, like you said, right in the middle, lefty. He's got longer arms. He strings them out, and that was his technique. And so terrible at names is fighting. Guy I went up there with, huge guy. Um, he said, um, I didn't have rage. I didn't get angry. And so you take those two things away. And before I spoke to them, I said, number one, you got to have rage. You got to have every ounce of adrenaline pumping through your body in a millisecond. You've got to summon that rage. If not, you're going to get your ass kicked. The other thing is, I would have always, my plan was to get the guy's right arm, get a grip on the base, perfectly is on the elbow, on the inside, lock your arm so he can't hit you. And Bashir said, I just grabbed the middle of the shirt. So I don't understand this. The part I'm absolutely convinced of is this. You can't win a fight 100 punches to 99 and stay in the league. You can't win a fight, 10 punches to 9. Um, no one can take these punches. And the guys that do, they're not around very long. And I was discussing this with Willie. Um, you the only time when I fought, I never got cut from a fight. I never got a bloody nose, never got a broken nose or whatever. I got hit. I got cut once in the back of my head from Willie, from a punch, the back of my head. And I cut Willie. He said I cut him in his face once. But that's a lot of fighting, and that's the only time I got hit hard. So, however your technique is, you can't get hit. You can't get hit. You've got to, and I'm not saying if you can, take off, 75% of their power somehow, make it tough, but you can't get hit. And that was my technique. My technique was get the guy's right arm, and I didn't even try to fight until I had his arm, because I'm not going to exchange blows. And everyone says, "Oh, you start off slow, Ben." Well, I've got no intention of fighting. I'm, more defensive, trying to keep my head into my arm, and so they can't get a good hit at me until they get their arm, and that's me. And if I can't get their arm, I'm not fighting. Once I have their arm, then it's a one-way fight. It's only a question is, can I break their grip on my right arm, and how much can I hit them? Um, and that's me. Some guys, they get hit and take more punches, and that's um, that's just a really a tough way to go. Now the weakness with my fighting was I always grab the right arm, and it doesn't work with a lefty. It doesn't work with a lefty at all. I hated fighting lefties. I had no technique, and it was just going to be the technical word is a shit show. And I had um, um, uh, terrible tough fights with Terry O'Reilly because of that. And you end up throwing a haymaker from the parking lot, and you're half off balance, and he's getting ready to unload on you, and you got to try to make sure that you can duck or bob and do something to not get hit. Then the unloading again. And they're out of control fights.
He was
And
such a whirlwind anyway. He was all over the place, O'Reilly. Like, he was flailing from his ankles. He was throwing over his head punches. Like, he was just everywhere, Terry O'Reilly. Like, it must have been just hard fighting him naturally, never mind the fact he was left-handed.
yeah, I tell you what, he fought the way I hated to fight. And he had the rage, he had the strength. He had the killer. He had it all going, and it was just wailing away. And I remember it felt like I was throwing one punch from the parking lot because you're even farther away from the guy, and then I miss him or catch him in the shoulder, and he's coming, and then you do this, and then but the punches are coming damn close to you, and it's a whole out of control fight, and I hate it. He did that all the time. He did that all the time. So hats off to him. But I can't think of a more
Yeah, he was
horrible way
everywhere.
to. Yeah. So thank God there weren't many lefties. I think of maybe
Gary Beck
Stan
was a left-hander
Jonathan
also.
Beck.
Beck was left-handed naturally, yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
Oh, he fought me right-handed, so that was good. That wouldn't have been the surprise that I wanted to find out about. Ouch. Now you're scaring me. You're giving me a shock through my body,
I'm sure you're not
30
afraid.
years later.
I'm sure you're not afraid of everybody, and I don't think you ever were. Ben, quick question. We're going to get this wrapped up for you. I got two last questions. One of them's easy, one's a little bit fun. I know the answer to one of them. I'm going to ask you if Ben Wilson's on the golf course today, who are the three guys in the golf cart with you? And I'm going to say two guys because I know Willie Plett's driving. So who's the other two guys that's in the golf cart with you if you're going out with four guys that you played hockey with that you want to have a good time?
Oh shit. That's well, um, since I was just in Philadelphia and saw some of the guys. First of all, the one thing with the hockey players, all the guys are really nice guys off the ice. And I just saw Mark Howe, which is a personal favorite of mine. I love Mark to death. So I pick him. I picked Jimmy Watson, who was my defense partner and my roommate my first couple years, and he brought me into the league. And he on the road, he always looked after me and brought me where everyone was going, and made me feel part of the team. And these guys had cup years. There's Bernie Perrant. Oh, Jimmy, I could digress. And Willie on one blue line in Atlanta. Elbow caught me with my head down, held me in the head mercilessly, and I went flying down. And Jimmy jumped in and fought Willie to defend my honor. And Jimmy didn't have any chance of winning the fight. He knew that going in, and Willie beat the crap out of him. And but Jimmy didn't care because he was going to be my partner and my friend, and I have incredible respect for him like that, which meant I had to go fight Willie again because you can't do that to my friend and partner. There were a lot of great. Keith Brown was a great friend. Doug Wilson. These guys were all great. Just to hang out with them, and the part I liked the best, and I put this in my book. If you were a fly in the wall in a dressing room, and your job was to figure out who the superstar was, not by the way they played, but the way they talked, the way they acted, and in the dressing room, you'd never figure it out. And I think when I was 19, I came in with a cup players. We had Bobby Clark, Bernie, Billy Barber, Reggie Leach. These are all 50 goal scorers, MVP Hart Trophy, and you'd never guess. And and then Joe Watson and Bernie, we went up to before I turned pro. I just got drafted. They had an empty seat to go up to White Yellowknife, Yukon, up by Alaska, for a fishing trip. So it said, "You want to come?" So I said, "Sure." So I go, and so I went in the boat fishing one day with Joe Watson and Bernie Perrant, and they made me feel incredible, like I was part of it, and we just laughed the whole time. And you know, they didn't have to do that. I'm what didn't fight and bleed for these guys and win the cup. They didn't even know if I was going to be on the team, but they made you feel great. So I had there's so many guys who were great. Terry Murray was a great defensive partner. I love Terry to death. And but I'd have Paul Holmgren in there. Kenny Linsman. I love Kenny. And
I've been trying to get
we
Kenny
always
on this
joke with
show for years. I've been trying to reach out and get in touch with him, and if you have a
I,
connection, I would owe
I
you big time.
Yeah, I'll after this, I'll see what I can do. But Kenny in junior, he always teasing me. We got in a fight in junior, Kenny and I, and he went down. We ran together. He fell down right away. There wasn't even one punch. So he always tells me his biggest regret in hockey is he was going to kick my ass. And but that's what I loved about Kenny. He didn't
He
care.
didn't back down for
Kenny
anybody,
didn't.
Ken Linsman. I don't care who you are.
Oh, Oh, it was hysterical. It was hysterical, and Kenny's a really smart guy. Been very successful after hockey, and he's got a good perspective on this. But yeah, Kenny didn't care. That's what made him so funny on the ice. He caused more shit. He had
Yeah,
more guys worried about him, and
the
the
rat,
truth is
Kenny the Rat Linsman.
he should have been worried about everyone else, and he turned the tables on everyone. That's how good he was, and he was a great player.
Well, we're going to wrap this up really quick. Your book's available at Barnes& and Noble, Amazon. It's called Gloves Off. If you're a hockey fan, you have to read this book. Ben has been amazing to me personally. This is the third time on the show. Each time I have a better time, and I want him back for a fourth. But I've never asked you the last question of the show, Ben. I got to ask. I've asked every single person I've ever
This is the
interviewed.
tough one.
I got to
This is the
find out.
tough one, has it?
This is the third
Okay.
time you've done
Okay.
my show, and I just it flies
Good.
by. I got to have you on a fourth time, but I got to ask this question because I ask every single person from ex-presidents to actors, actresses. Ben, does pineapple belong on a pizza?
Is it Hawaiian?
Yeah, like a Hawaiian
Hell
pizza.
yeah. Hawaiian pizza, hell yeah.
Oh, Ben.
I
Philadelphia.
blew it. I blew it. Okay, let's delete this. Delete that. Let's ask the question again, okay?
No,
If
give
you
an
could ask
honest
the
answer. Do
question
you eat
again.
pineapple on a pizza?
No, no, I don't. No, no. Try this again. The answer is no. Pineapple doesn't belong on a pizza,
Now,
okay?
as a hardcore Italian, they get offended by that. I'm just saying, you're from Philly, some of the best food in the world. They might not like that answer. But Ben, I can't say thank you enough. I mean, you're absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I could listen to tell stories for days at a time. And is there anywhere anything you want to plug on the book real fast? Please feel free.
Listen, I think I just the only thing about my book is it's it's upbeat, it's positive, and I give a shout out to some truly great players and teammates that meant a lot to me, shaped my life, and I just want to make sure that they get a little acknowledgement because they were fabulous. They were fabulous, and I'd hate for anyone to forget these guys. And I did a lot of shout outs.
Awesome. Guys, it was great having you back. Ben, stay on for a minute. I got a question for you off the air. But, ladies and gentlemen, this will be posted on YouTube, Facebook, all Spotify, everywhere. Give us a listen and a like, and see you soon.